Shabbat Shalom. This week's parsha is Parshat Re'eh. And Re'eh begins very simply, straightforward, stating, Re'eh anochi noten lifnechem hayom bracha uklala. See, I put before you today a blessing and a curse. The blessing is if you follow my Torah, God says, then you will be amply rewarded. But if you don't follow my Torah, you will be punished. The blessings are the reward, the curses the punishment. It seems as we read the book of Deuteronomy that the theology of Deuteronomy is quid pro quo. If you perform a mitzvah, if the entire nation performs mitzvot, there will be a reward. The reward is that there will be rain in its proper season, crops will grow, there will be abundance, there will be wealth, everybody will be happy. And the curse is that if we don't do mitzvot, that God will close up the heavens. There will be no rain, there will be drought, there will be no crops, there will be starvation and misery. It almost sounds as if that in the mindset of Deuteronomy, that mitzvot are like the coin that we put into a slot machine. You put in a mitzvah, you pull the handle, and out comes the reward. Do a mitzvah, get the reward. Do a mitzvah, get the reward. Commit a sin, get the punishment. Say you put the negative coin in, pull the handle, and out comes the curse. But that certainly is not the theology of the rabbis. There is not a parity between God's side of mercy and compassion, known as rachamim and chesed, and God's din, God's strict justice. How do I know? Because it's recorded in the Talmud, in Masechet Kiddushin, that Rav Asi says, interpreting a verse from the prophet Malachi, that God punishes not for thoughts, but for acts. In other words, we are only responsible for sinful acts, not thoughts. And that really is a fundamental of rabbinic theology. Many of us smiled, even laughed. So many years ago, if you remember that infamous interview with President Jimmy Carter in that magazine that people buy for the articles, and where Carter said that he has committed adultery because he lusted in his heart. Well, it's probably not the best thought to have, but in Jewish tradition, it's not a sin to lust in your heart. It is a sin to act on that lust for somebody who is not your spouse. However, Rav Asi says, not so with mitzvot. That interpreting the verse from Malachi, Rav Asi said that someone who intends to do a mitzvah, who thinks about doing a mitzvah, but for some reason is prevented from fulfilling the thought and transferring it into a deed, still gets credit for the thought. The thought of kindness, of compassion, of charity, of justice, the thought of it is sufficient in God's eyes for reward. Because God comes down on the side of kindness and compassion and mercy. Those attributes of God are stronger and more prevalent than God's anger and God's judgment. And therefore, this week, I say to you, keep up the good thoughts. There is a reward for it. Because if you have these thoughts, then you will translate them into actions. And these mitzvot that you are going to do are of life's greatest blessings. So keep up the good thoughts and make the right choice. Shabbat Shalom May you have a Zisen Shabbos, and I'll see you in Shul.